Hi guys, welcome to my core. My name is Mayana. I read a little bit of everything and I like to talk a lot. So today I'm actually going to be talking about cozy fantasy and my problem with it. I did a video about romantasy and people liked it. And basically there's nothing I love more in this world than being a hater and telling people why I don't like things. So I figured I would unsolicitedly give you this video about why I don't like cozy fantasy. Before we get into the tea, let me just tell you what cozy fantasy is. So to sum it up, cozy fantasy is just a fantasy with low stakes and vibes. I'm sure it's more than that, but that's just how I feel about it. Like, I've read a few, and to me it's just something set in a fantasy world with low stakes. Like, not a lot is going on in the background. The plot is just like very, you know, and it's just vibes and aesthetic. To be honest, it's just the vibes and aesthetic of a fantasy world. So if you look at me, I'm a cozy girl. I got the candles going. My room is very cozy. I got me a black cat. I'm very much a cozy girl. And I have things that like I love outside of reading that is very cozy. One of my favorite animes is Frieren, and it's very low stakes. It's about this woman who is a very powerful witch, follows the past and the present. Because she's a very powerful witch, she's been alive for a long time and she's watched like her friends die, and so she doesn't really want to gain any relationships, but then she gets a apprentice, I believe, and so they grow like a friendship, and it's very cozy. I think it works for me because it's a visual thing. I also like Howl's Moving Castle. I love Howl's Moving Castle. I love Howl as a character. I love the meaning of the story and the point of the story. I watched it first and then I read it as a book, which I think is why Howl's Moving Castle worked for me. I love the Dragon Tea Society, and this was around before cozy fantasy became a thing. Actually, I own it, and this is one of my favorite graphic novels ever. It's so cute. The art is stunning. I love anything with great art, and I'm obsessed with this art. And I love a character with pink hair. Like, I love pink hair. What can I say? And I love cozy gaming. I love Animal Crossing. Night in the Woods. It's one of my favorite games ever. What else do I like? I don't know. I like a little bit cozy gaming, but then I also love playing like Dead by Daylight with my brother and my friends, and like Among Us, and like games where like yelling at each other and being chaotic and fun. But I do love my cozy gaming, especially because cozy gaming is how I listen to my audiobook sometimes. Also, one of my favorite cozy games is called Dorf Romantic, and it's literally a puzzle that you're building. You can play it every day and you're just building an island, but it's a puzzle and it's really fun. But anyways, we're gonna get into some books that I've read that are in this genre because I just kind of want to talk about those for a little bit. And this is a way for me to give me reviews and rant about these books that are popular that I don't like and I feel left out, and I want to like them because the covers are beautiful and it seems fun. I love fantasy and everybody loves it but me, and I'm a little sad, but also like not that sad. Legends and Lattes. This is kind of like the start of cozy fantasy. I feel like cozy fantasy is the same thing as romantasy. I'm not sure, but what I said in my romantasy video is that romantasy is not something new. It is just something that has got a new name. Like, romantasy has been around for a long time. It just now has a name behind it, and I feel like that's the same thing with cozy fantasy. But I also don't want to discredit this author because this author did start a really popular trend. Legend and Lattes is about this org who wants to build a coffee shop, and so they're just going around talking to people and collecting things. It's the most fucking boring book I've ever read in my life. Honestly, I'm gonna just tell you that these books are boring. If you want my reviews, you're gonna have to check out my Goodreads, because for some reason, whenever I leave a Goodreads review, like, I'll actually tell you what my problems were, and then like once I'm done with it, the only thing I remember is that I was bored. So that doesn't say anything about these books. Emily Wilde's boring, and it's compared to Howl's Moving Castle, which I think is an insult. I hate when things are compared to Howl's Moving Castle. The only thing that has successfully been compared to Howl's Moving Castle to me, Sorcery of Thorns, is one of my favorite books ever. I think that it's the only thing that successfully gets a comp for it. But like, just because something is compared to Howl's Moving Castle doesn't mean it has to be exactly like it. I just was struggling to find. But then now that I know that people view Howl's Moving Castle as cozy, I guess it makes sense. The Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I did not like this book. I thought that the romance was really flat. I thought that all the characters were really flat. I couldn't connect to any of the characters. Couldn't give a shit about them. Half a Soul was fine. I actually really liked it. It's supposed to be autism rep, but I wish that the author would have said that in the book or made it more clear. I guess she doesn't have to, but I kind of hate when these books, when everyone is like, this character kind of feels neurodiverse, and then the author is just like, yeah, we can just say that. And maybe that's not how it went, but that's kind of just how it felt to me. Also, I read a review from one of my mutuals on Twitter, and they said like the implications of half a soul and like making this character neurodivergent is a little weird, which In hindsight, I do agree. I'm not gonna hold you. Pressing the Emerald Sea. This was supposed to be the Princess Bride, like type of inspired by the Princess Bride. I've never seen the Princess Bride before. I tried to watch it and then I turned it off like 5 minutes in because I got bored. So I'm gonna give it another try though, because everyone loves it and I just sometimes don't feel like watching movies or TV shows. Like, I prioritize reading a lot, so sometimes it's just that. But I did read Trust in the Emerald Sea. Obviously, these are all books I read. I thought it was boring. Long Way to a Small Angry Planet I actually haven't read, but I do own it. I tried to read it, and I didn't want to get rid of this book for a long time because I'm like, no, like I soft DNF'd it, and then I tried to go back to it, and I got bored, and then I was like, no, I still want to give it a try. But looking at the fact that people consider this cozy sci-fi, I should just get rid of it because I don't like it. And then another cozy sci-fi book is Floating Hotel, which is about this hotel that's floating in the sky or the universe or something. And people go there and it's about this guy who just works there. He went there when he was a kid and then he ended up like working there, and it's just about him working at a floating hotel. I don't know. So if you like any of those, the other books that you haven't read sounds interesting, then check it out. But yeah, I actually wrote a script for this one because I didn't write a script for my last one. It was the most unstructured mess I have ever filmed in my life. So this one is going to be structured. It's no surprise that I don't love cozy fantasy, considering it's really similar to romantasy. But in my mind, at least romantasy tries to trick you that it has a plot. Also, I don't like cozy mysteries either, for more of the same reasons. Like, I think my issue is that I just like high stakes. That's my problem. Not my problem, but that candle back there is blowing a little high. I got a little scared. I'm like, hold on. I'm gonna have to watch her. I just feel like they're a little too long for my liking for them to be cozy. Like, if you're gonna be cozy and short. Why are you cozy in 300 pages? You're like a full book. Be cozy and be a novella. I think I would love them a lot more if a lot more of them were novellas, because I just don't want to sit here for 300 pages. And I need conflict. I need conflicts in my story. I'm sorry. A plot needs to have a conflict in order to be a plot. Because I remember I was like talking to one of my friends. We're talking about like how I don't like cozy fantasy and how I don't like Legend and Lattes, and she liked it. And I was like, oh, well, I just don't like that it has a plot. And she was like, it does have a plot. And I was like, I don't really think going to build a bookshelf is a plot. I don't really think that going around to build things and like needing to talk to people to gather things is like a plot. And that's the same that goes for like all these other. A plot is something that has a rising action, a climax, a falling action. A plot needs a conflict to be a plot. I think that fantasy books can have cozy moments. A lot of fantasy books have cozy moments. I'm reading The Wheel of Time right now. Those definitely have cozy moments, like where they stop in like community or where they're like traveling. They have cozy moments. Like, you see so many different types of cultures. The biggest point about at least the first 3 books that I'm reading in The Wheel of Time is the fact that they visit so many different cultures, and we witness so many different cultures and what makes them different, and the fact that like this is a world. And that's the reason why I can admire The Wheel of Time, because it shows you how this is a world and not like one side. Not just like one side of what the author wants us to see. I was looking at my reviews for these books, and the one thing that I have in common is that they're boring, because they are. And the fact that I couldn't connect with the characters. And I hate just calling things boring, because obviously what's boring to me isn't what's boring to other people. And I wanted to, this year, one of my goals is to try and describe why I found something boring. But genuinely, I cannot describe that with these books, because they simply are just boring. And just because I find something boring doesn't mean that other people aren't going to like it. But I noticed on my Goodreads reviews, a lot of people agreed with me. And a lot of people were relieved with my review, because these books are so hyped and so popular, and everyone else is like, I love these books. And then I was saying how I found these boring, and people were like, thank you for saying this. Like, I felt so alone, because these books are so popular, and like you might not find them boring if you read cozy fantasy, and that's fine. I'm just speaking for the people who feel like outliers and they want to love this genre, but they try to read it and they're like, this shit is boring. I just feel like having 300 pages of a book, there's no plot, and it's just vibes and aesthetic, and you can't even let your characters connect to the plot, should be a crime. Because a lot of my big issue with a lot of these books is that I could not connect to the characters. And I think that stems from having a lack of plot, because plot helps people grow, and obviously some of these characters grow, but putting these characters through things sometimes helps people grow fondness to them. I'm going to bring up The Wheel of Time again because I am currently reading it. I'm actually on The Dragon Reborn. I guess I can hold it up while I talk about it. So this is actually in the second book, not the third book that I'm holding. But there's this character in the second book named Egwene. And Egwene was a character that I didn't too much care for. I thought she was fine. She's very naive. And then there's something that happens at the end of book 3. The last 100 pages is my favorite part of the story, to be honest. And it was a huge conflict. It was a serious thing. You got to see her grow. You got to see her powers grow. You got to see how she kind of changed mentally. And it was something that I loved because I grew such a huge respect for her character. And I don't necessarily think that like you have to go through something traumatic in order to be considered a great character or anything. But I noticed that the characters that I love personally are characters who go through something to overcome. Sometimes a character will come on a page and she'll be a bad bitch. I love a mean girl. I'm sorry. I love a bad bitch. But I hate like, when you think of like I hate like a Selena Sardarthian kind of character where like she comes in and she's supposed to be like this bad bitch and she's like this crazy assassin and she's just automatically so good at everything that she does and like things like that. Like, I want like character growth. I want to see them grow. I'm not saying that these cozy fantasy books don't have that, but I just feel like I don't care when I'm starting and you're not doing anything to make me care. Basically, I don't know these people. Also, I want to state that I am not against long books, okay? 3 of the 4 books that I am reading right now are over 400 pages. 2 of them are over 600 pages. I am not opposed to read long books. I don't like reading long books where I feel like my time is being wasted. I read Stephen King. I've read Brandon Sanderson. I read The Name of the Wind. Like, I loved it. It's not the length of the book that is my problem. It is the fact that you have me sitting here for a very long time and nothing is happening. I just feel like if the books were shorter, if they were novellas, that would just work a lot more for me. And I understand a palate cleanser book. I am someone who reads a little bit of everything. That's why I know that I don't like cozy fantasy, because I keep picking it up because I want to love it so bad. And I'm not one of those people who like, I hate this genre is inherently bad, and then I'm still picking up the books. It's the fact that I pick up these books because there are some books that work for me in the cozy fantasy genre, but also like I love hype books. I'm not one of those people who are contrarian and I have to hate all things that are popular. I love popular books. I love hype things. I want to be in on it too, and that's my problem. I understand needing a palate cleanser book. As someone who reads a lot, I need a palate cleanser book every here and there. So I definitely understand why people love this genre. I just don't get the hype about cozy fantasy. And I don't mean that in the sense of like, ugh, it's overhyped. I just mean it in the sense of I don't understand why so many people love it. Well, I do understand it, but at the same time I don't, if that makes sense. I don't think that makes sense. I'm so sorry. But I do feel like people are going to get bored with cozy fantasy. I feel like people are going to get bored very fast if they're not already bored of it, because it's low stakes. And I think that low stakes is fun. And I think it's easy to read when you want to get into a new genre. But I just don't see cozy fantasy lasting for a long time. And I'm sure it just helps people who don't want to read high fantasy or who want to get into high fantasy. And like I said, I understand it's a palate cleanser. Like, I have palate cleansers. My palate cleansers is usually romance books because they're really easy to pick up and they're really quick. And actually, I need a new palate cleanser actually, because romance books have been pissing me off, and I actually swore off romance books this year. So, but also because I read everything, I kind of don't need palate cleansers because I can just pick up something that's not currently, like I'm reading 3 fantasy books and a sci-fi book. The sci-fi book is the palate cleanser here. Actually, out of all the books that I'm currently reading, Discworld is my palate cleanser. And I'll talk about Discworld a lot later because it's my current obsession. But Discworld is actually my palate cleanser as of late, because even though it's a fantasy book and it's a high fantasy book, it is not very serious. I forget what it's called, but it's like very funny. It's like comedic fantasy. It has a name for it. I'm sorry. I'm new to this. I'm sorry. It's very funny and I love it. And these are my palate cleansers right now. I know it helps people. And like the main reason of cozy fantasy is that it's comforting. I just don't see it lasting for a long time. But also, I'm just a girl, so what do I know? I'm just a girl who sits in her room and talks to her camera. So I could genuinely do it. I don't work in bookstores. I'm not a publisher. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. This is just how I feel and what I've been seeing. Like, I haven't been seeing a lot of people talk about cozy fantasy. I haven't been seeing a lot of them come out, but I'm also not in those communities. So who am I? And I don't hate all cozy fantasy. I just like books that make me think. books with themes and political intrigue. I'm not saying that every book that I read is a perfect masterpiece and they're all super good, because I have From Blood and Ash up there. Like, we all know that ain't that great. So I'm not saying that everything I read has to be like a masterpiece and I'm just so above this genre because I'm just such a high fantasy girl. I'm not saying any of that. I don't hate cozy fantasy. Depending on what your personal definition of it is, I actually might have a few books in that list, because when I was looking through cozy fantasy lists last night, I saw a few of my favorite books in there and I was like, I don't see this as a cozy fantasy, but if that's what your term is, girl, then go for it. And I get not everyone wants politics or violence in their stories as well. There's a lot of books out there that don't have that. Apple's here. Everyone say hello to Apple. I got her to cuddle with me. Apple, say hello, Apple. Say hello, Apple. One thing that I did want to point out is that I do enjoy how sapphic the cozy fantasy genre is, especially because I notice in the romance genre it is very much lacking. And so I do like that there is a place for people to go to read sapphic stories, and I do like that this genre is very diverse. It reminds me of monster romances. I'm sorry, but if I get the chance to bring up a monster romance in a video, I'm going to. Like, I'm sorry, but my reasoning why I love monster romances is because it is very diverse. It has black women, it has sapphic women, it has like some of the tropes that I love that just don't include diversity, and also while being like monsters. Like, I don't know, I think it's very fun, and cozy romances actually remind me of that. Discworld is quickly becoming one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, just because of how it is cozy. It does have cozy elements, but it has plot, it has themes, it has allegories. Like, every single book is a critique on something else. Well, not every single book, because there are some books that don't have critique. Not all of them do have critiques, but they're fun and they have all the classic tropes while also having a plot and having things going on. There are some Discworld books that I think that could be considered cozy fantasy just because of like how good it is, but it also has like that, it has plot in it. I just love books that really encapsulate like characters and meaning for the characters and things for the characters do, instead of just walking around or sitting around and talking. But that's the fun thing about reading, is that it's subjective. Just because I don't like cozy fantasy doesn't make it any less valid, doesn't mean that it sucks, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. It just isn't for me, and that's okay. I just wanted to make this video for people who can relate, because it's so popular and loved, but there's so many people who can't get into it for a multitude of reasons. Cozy fantasy just isn't for me, but if you like it, I love it. Honestly, the biggest crime of the genre is that it's boring. But yeah, that's it for this video. I had a lot of fun filming this video. I really loved how like relaxing it was, and I also love when I get to be a hater of things. If you like this video, be sure to like this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Say bye, Apple.